Bitcoin is not tied to the US dollar. I hear a lot of objections to Bitcoin from various people for various reasons, but one of the ones that makes literally zero sense is people saying, yeah, but the problem is the US dollar has all these problems and Bitcoin is tied to the US dollar. Bitcoin is not tied to the US dollar. Bitcoin is not tied to any fiat currency. Exchange Bitcoin for any other currency, any other commodity, and just about anything else. In fact, for many years now, the Federal Reserve itself, the central bank of the United States, that is the world reserve currency, they have tracked the price of eggs in Bitcoin. So even if you're at a farmer's market and the US dollar, poof, magically went away, the Federal Reserve themselves is tracking what is the price of eggs is priced in Bitcoin. So you could literally go up on your phone, even in a world with no US dollars. You could check the official Federal Reserve, tracking, and you could find out what do eggs cost as priced in Bitcoin. So when people say this, it reminds me, when we were kids, right? You'd find like wrapping paper with these long cardboard tubes in them, and you could take the long cardboard tube and you could look through it, and it would show you like this tiny little circle of the world. And whenever anyone says that Bitcoin is tied to the US dollar, or if the US dollar goes down, Bitcoin will go down with it because Bitcoin is priced in US dollars. It reminds me of a kid looking through one of these cardboard tubes and saying, yeah, but all I see is this tiny little circle. That's all there is. And it's like, well, put away the tube. There's a huge wide world out there. If all you can see is Bitcoin priced in US dollars, it is because you have a very US centric view of the world. You don't realize that there are 160 other currencies in the world and that Bitcoin is priced in all of them. You've never gone on TradingView and tracked the price of Bitcoin in gold, the price of Bitcoin in oil, the price of Bitcoin in soybeans, corn, wheat, silver, all of that. Bitcoin is priced in everything because Bitcoin can be used to purchase anything. It can be used to purchase any other currency in the world. It can be used to purchase any other commodity in the world and any other product or service. I can show up in literally any country on the planet right now, and I can either buy everything I need directly with Bitcoin from someone in that country that's willing to take Bitcoin for a car or a house or, groceries or whatever I need. I can either find somebody that will directly take Bitcoin for that in literally any country, anywhere in the world. I can trade Bitcoin directly with no US dollar involvement directly for the local currency and then use the local currency to buy anything I need. So when people say Bitcoin is only priced in US dollars, it's like, what do you think happens in Japan? So you think when somebody swaps Japanese yen for Bitcoin that they're going to US dollars in Japan first? No, that's not what's happening. That makes no sense. They're going straight from Japanese yen to dollars. Sorry, not to dollars, to Bitcoin, not $2. And same in Thailand. If you're in Thailand, there's huge billboards that have the price of Bitcoin priced in the Thai baht, which is the Thai currency. And if you go on a Thai cryptocurrency exchange and you want to buy Bitcoin with Thai baht, they're not bouncing through US dollars first. They're going straight from Thai baht to to Bitcoin and back again based on the floating exchange rate. So Bitcoin has a floating exchange rate with literally every other currency, commodity, and everything else you could possibly want. Everything in the world can be bought with Bitcoin, and you can buy any other currency in the world with Bitcoin. It has nothing to do with the US dollar. In fact, the US dollar could completely disappear tomorrow, and it would actually accelerate the adoption of Bitcoin because a bunch of people that currently rely on the US dollar, some of those would switch to Japanese yen, Chinese yuan, whatever, Indian rupees, the euro. Some of them would switch Canadian dollars, Mexican pesos. Some of the people currently dependent on US dollars, if the US dollar just magically went away, some of those people would switch to another national currency, like any of the ones I just mentioned, but a lot of them would just go straight to Bitcoin and just start buying everything in Bitcoin. And every shop owner and every store in the United States would have the choice. If the US dollar suddenly went poof, is okay, do we start listing our prices at Costco and Kroger, do we start listing them in the, European euro or the Canadian dollar or the Mexican peso, or do we just straight up list them in Bitcoin? And they probably do a mix of more than one currency because if the US dollar went away all of a sudden, which is not going to, but if it did all of a sudden, um, they would have to price it in something and it wouldn't be US dollars because US dollar went away. So same thing happens all around the world when their local currency goes away. Give me 1 second. It is a very common occurrence around the world for fiat currencies, which means made up government issued currencies, to go to zero effectively. So most recently in Venezuela, but before that, it's happened in numerous countries around the world. And what happens is the store shops just start pricing everything in something other than the local currency because nobody wants the local currency anymore, and so they start pricing it in U.S. dollars or pesos or euros or whatever currency is nearby and close geographically and available for their citizens. That's not whatever the currency is that went to zero. So Bitcoin, yes, you can get it priced in US dollars, but Bitcoin is not dependent on the US dollar. It's not priced only in dollars. There's no dependency there. And Bitcoin would actually thrive in a world if the US dollar just went away. So anytime someone says, look, there are a lot of great questions in Bitcoin, a lot of great questions that I deeply appreciate because they show sort of a deep thought about how Bitcoin works or how it would work, including the questions I posted. It was either late last week or I think it was late last week, where I did like 5 questions in a row, question 1 of 5, which were just fantastic questions. This one does not show deep thought. So if somebody says to me, the problem with Bitcoin is it's tied to the US dollar, I'm like, no, like, turn your brain on. It's not tied to the US dollar. Like, that makes no logical sense. How do you think that works in foreign countries? That makes no sense. I'm sorry, but it makes no sense. So Bitcoin is not tied to the US dollar. It's not dependent on the US dollar. Forgive the rant, but when people make this, accusation or criticism of Bitcoin, I'm like, think that through. Like, it makes me want to say, just let me give you 30 seconds to think that through. Just think about that for 30 seconds and then see if your question makes any sense at all. And the answer is it makes no sense. Like, no, that's not how the world works. That's not how anything internationally works. They don't bounce through the US dollar every time they convert, Chinese currency to Japanese currency. No, like that makes no sense. So Bitcoin's not tied to the US dollar. Bitcoin would thrive in a world with or without the US dollar. And Bitcoin can be priced in anything, and anything else in the world is also priced in Bitcoin, including the Federal Reserve, the price of eggs. If you want to go check it out online, just Google Bitcoin price of eggs or egg price of Bitcoin or something like that. And you might have to include the word Federal Reserve or Fed Reserve or something like that. But you can go look it up and they track it. Have a great day.